Alice Nahon, Nahon, Alice Nahon 16 August 1896 to 1 May 1933 was a Belgian poet from Antwerp. Biography. Alice Nahon was born in Antwerp on 23 August 1896. She was the third child in a family of 11 children. Her father, Gerard L. Nahon, was born in the Netherlands but of Huguenot origin. Her mother, Julia J. Simmons, was born in Put, nearby Mechelen, where Alice spent much time during her childhood. She went to the primary school at the Oud God English, Old God, and from 1911 she went to the School for Agriculture in Overijse, where she graduated. However, when World War I broke out, she became a student nurse at the Stuivenberg Hospital in Antwerp. After weeks of arduous labor, hardly 18 years old, she became ill and it seemed that her lungs had been damaged. She still studied at the Academie van Antwerpen English, Academy of Antwerp, and literature classes of Paul de Mont, but during the following years she had to spend much of her time in sanatoria, and from 1917 she stayed at the St. Joseph's Institute for 6 years in Tessenderlo. The physicians of the institute convinced her that she had tuberculosis and that she would not have long to live. She became depressive and started reading her favorite poets, such as Guido Gezelle, and writing her own poems was her only consolation. During her stay in Tessenderlo, her first poems were published in Blanche Leven. During her stay in the St. Joseph's Institute, she wrote 2 collections of poems, Vondelingskens 1920 and Opzacht Buiskens 1921. Her poems testify of a love for nature, admiration for simple things, and grief for own and interwoven with other people's suffering, and with a religious inspiration. During this time, in 1920, she became acquainted with Fernand Berkelaire's alias Mitchell Seufer anagram of Orpheus, and Geert Painenberg, who together had launched the avant-gardist review Het Overzicht. She published a poem in the first number of the review. Thanks to the generosity of her many admirers, she could consult a foreign doctor. In January 1923, she left Belgium for Luzern in Switzerland. After new investigations, it was determined that she did not suffer from tuberculosis, but from chronic bronchitis. After the years she had lost in the sanatoria, she was sent to Italy, where she was cured shortly after her arrival. After she had spent some time in the lands and in Paris, she returned to Antwerp and underwent still new medical treatment in The Hague and Amsterdam. She enjoyed her regained freedom, traveled as a celebrated poet through Flanders and the Netherlands, and made many friends among artists. In 1927, she became town librarian in Mechelen. Parish started a fairly liberated way of life. She, however, also became friends with more traditional writers, such as Moritz Sab and Gerard Walschap. With her collection of poems Shadow 1928, she tried to break away from her former well-behaved poetry, but she did not succeed. In 1932, she became ill again and had to resign her job as a librarian. She lived at the picturesque vault house of the medieval Castle Cantacroy at Oud God. Her health deteriorated, and she spent the last year of her life at her apartment in the Karnotstraat in NR 17 in the center of Antwerp. As from January 1933, she became heavily sick and bedridden. She weakened from day to day, and after a painful illness she died on 21 May 1933, scarcely 36 years old. She was buried under enormous interest. Her grave is located on the Schoonselhof Cemetery in Antwerp. After her death, in 1936, the collection of poems Mark April was published with previously unpublished work.